Good morning students, I am S. Mohanasundari, Department of Chemistry. In this video we are going to discuss chapter 5, Air. We already discussed some topics. They are air, properties of air, atmosphere, composition of air, components of air and uses of air. So we all know what is air. Air is a mixture of several gases, and the properties of air like air can be compressed, air has mass, it occupies space, it is transparent, it is colorless, it is odorless, as well as we can feel the air. So these are all comes under properties of air. And atmosphere, a layer that surrounds the earth is called atmosphere. So there are 5 layers of air. So that is layers of atmosphere. And the next one is composition of air. So the amount of gas that present in atmosphere is called a composition of air. So nitrogen is present at 78 percentage and oxygen is present at 21 percentage, and the remaining gases like carbon dioxide, water vapor, dust particles, organ gases, so these are all comes under 1 percentage. So this is composition of air. And the components of air like nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, carbon dioxide, dust particles, smoke, inert gases, so these are all components of air, and we have briefly discussed about these topics. And the next one is uses of air. Air is very helpful to living beings as well as plants and animals. So air is used for a main thing. The first process is respiration, and the air can be useful for the dispersal of seeds, that is pollination, as well as it is a very helpful for sailing the boats in sea. It can be compressed and filled in tires of vehicles, as well as the wind energy, that is the blowing of wind is very helpful for generating electricity at windmill stations. So these are all uses of air. Now we are going to discuss about addition of two topics, that is how oxygen and carbon dioxide balanced in nature, and the next one is resting. So let us see the first one, oxygen and carbon dioxide cycle. So before going to this topic, kindly watch a video about this. It will be giving a clear idea to you what is oxygen and carbon cycle.
The air around us is made up of many different gases, including oxygen, carbon dioxide, nitrogen, and inert gases. Oxygen and carbon dioxide in particular are important for the survival of living organisms. The amount of these gases in the atmosphere is maintained by the carbon cycle and the oxygen cycle, respectively. The carbon cycle is the cycle that maintains the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere by continuously taking carbon dioxide from the air and releasing it back into the air. When green plants undergo the process of photosynthesis to make food, they absorb carbon dioxide from the air. The carbon element stored in plants is then transferred to animals that eat the plants. When plants and animals die, their dead bodies decompose and release carbon dioxide back into the air due to the actions of fungi and bacteria in the soil. In addition, all living organisms, including plants and animals, release carbon dioxide into the air through the process of respiration in their entire lifetime. Over a long period of time, the bodies of dead organisms become fossil fuels, which are used by factories, power stations, and vehicles. The combustion or burning of fossil fuels also releases carbon dioxide into the air. In summary, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is maintained when photosynthesis, which is a process that requires carbon dioxide, is balanced by decomposition, respiration, and combustion, which are processes that release carbon dioxide. The oxygen cycle, on the other hand, maintains the amount of oxygen in the atmosphere also by continuously taking oxygen from the air and releasing it back into the air. Like the carbon cycle, the processes that require oxygen, such as respiration, combustion, decomposition, and rusting, are balanced by photosynthesis, which releases oxygen back into the air. Many human activities, such as illegal logging and the excessive use of pesticides, interfere with the carbon and oxygen cycles. The consequences of this interference include global warming and the greenhouse effect, which may eventually cause fertile lands to become dry. The ways to reduce the interference with the carbon and oxygen cycles include planting more trees to help reforestation, stopping the burning of fields and forests, preventing the excessive release of smoke from vehicles, avoiding the excessive use of pesticides, banning illegal logging, and making tougher laws to protect the environment.
So these are the ways how oxygen and carbon dioxide get balanced. So by planting more trees, we can avoid the imbalancing of carbon dioxide and oxygen in nature. So the next one is oxygen and carbon dioxide balanced in nature in few more ways. That is, by respiration we are inhaling oxygen and we are giving out carbon dioxide. Like that, in burning of fuels also, the oxygen is constantly used and it can be replaced by carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide is used by plants for photosynthesis process. So by that, plants give out oxygen as a result of photosynthesis process. So you have to know what is photosynthesis. So the oxygen of air being consumed by human beings, animals and plants in respiration and in the burning of fuels is constantly being replaced by plants through the process of photosynthesis. That's what now I said. So we are using oxygen for breathing as well as the burning process is done by consuming oxygen. So this consumption of oxygen is replaced by plants through the process of photosynthesis. Now what is photosynthesis? So in sunlight, plants use carbon dioxide and water to make food by the process of photosynthesis and produce oxygen gas, that is in the presence of sunlight. So photo means a reaction that based on light. So that's what it is called as photosynthesis. Synthesis means process. So in the presence of sunlight is very important, as well as in the presence of sunlight, plants use carbon dioxide as well as water to make their own food. So the process of making food is called photosynthesis. So after making the food, they produce sugar and oxygen gas. So this process is called photosynthesis. So let us see this equation. So carbon dioxide plus water molecule in the presence of sunlight. So this reaction is happening in the chlorophyll. The pigment which is present in the plants and trees is called chlorophyll. So in the chlorophyll pigment only this reaction is happening. So the carbon dioxide plus water molecule in the presence of sunlight, it gives sugar molecule as well as oxygen molecules as product. So we are inhaling, we are using that oxygen, so it should be replaced. So how it is replaced means in the process of photosynthesis. So the result of photosynthesis is the production of oxygen molecules. So 6 carbon dioxide molecules and 6 water molecules are converted by light energy, that is sunlight, captured by chlorophyll. So it gives sugar molecule and 6 oxygen molecules as a product. So plants also using oxygen, right? In respiration, plants also consuming some amount of oxygen, but they produce more oxygen than they consume. So they are giving out more oxygen. So they are consuming some oxygen, but they are giving out more oxygen than they consume. So that's why they get balanced in atmosphere. So the oxygen which produced by plants is used by plants, animals and also human beings to live. So we are all depending on plants for getting oxygen, right? So we are all depending upon plants and trees so that avoid deforestation. So we have to plant more trees to get oxygen and as well as rain. So the carbon dioxide. So now we had seen oxygen cycle. So what about carbon dioxide? The carbon dioxide of air being consumed by plants in photosynthesis is constantly put back to the air by the respiration of animals, plants as well as burning of fuels. The same thing, but it also useful for balancing the carbon dioxide in atmosphere. How? We are using oxygen, okay va? Then we are giving out carbon dioxide. That means we are inhaling oxygen and we are giving out carbon dioxide. So this carbon dioxide is being used in photosynthesis, so that we have to balance carbon dioxide also la. So the carbon dioxide is balanced by human beings because we are producing carbon dioxide. I mean we are releasing carbon dioxide, as well as burning of fuels results carbon dioxide. It releases carbon dioxide. After burning, it gives out carbon dioxide molecules more, so that it can be balanced in atmosphere. So how it happens? Plants and animals use oxygen from air, as well as human beings also use oxygen from air for respiration. We are giving out carbon dioxide gas. So again this carbon dioxide gas goes back to the atmosphere. So that atmosphere, the carbon dioxide gas is being used by plants for again photosynthesis process. So this is a cycle. We already discussed about water cycle. Like that, this is also oxygen and carbon cycle. So let us see the next topic, rusting. So before that, kindly watch a video about rusting.
Rusting of iron. Kiwi is curious to know whether rusting of iron is a physical or a chemical change. We know that bridges, cars, trucks, ships, and many other articles are made up of iron. But these iron objects are easily affected by the process of rusting. Rusting slowly destroys iron objects, which leads to huge monetary loss. Rusting is the most familiar change. When an iron piece is left in the open for some time, a film of brownish substance is formed. A brownish film deposited on the surface of iron objects is called rust. Now let us understand the process of rusting in detail. Rusting involves both oxygen and water or water vapor. This process can be represented with the help of an equation. The symbol of iron is Fe, and that of oxygen is O2, whereas the symbol of water is H2O. Remember, oxygen is present in the air. When an iron object comes in contact with moist air or water, it forms rust. Rust is not iron. It is iron oxide, that is, Fe2O3. Thus, the equation can be represented as Fe plus O2 plus H2O gives Fe2O3. As such, we can say that the process of rust formation in the presence of oxygen and water or water vapor is called rusting. Rusting becomes faster if the content of moisture in the air is high. That is, if it is more.
So we had seen what is rusting. So when an iron object is left in a damp air for a considerable time, it gets covered with a red brown flaky substance that is called rust. That is, we are keeping an iron substance, iron object in a damp air. Damp air means moist air. It contains water vapor, that is called damp air. Or we are kept it in water, normal water. So for a particular period of time, it gets covered with reddish brown substance. So we can see through this picture. So that reddish brown substance is called rust, and the process is called rusting of iron. So during this process, iron metal combines with the oxygen in presence of water to give a compound called iron oxide. So what is rust? Rust is a iron oxide. Remember that rust is iron oxide substance. So the rust and iron are not same. Okay, va? So rust is a different substance and iron object is a different substance. So after getting reaction with water or moisture with the presence of oxygen gives the rust, that is Fe2O3 iron oxide or ferric oxide. So iron is represented in symbol as Fe. Oxygen is O2, water is H2O. So it gives Fe2O3, that is iron oxide. So there are two conditions necessary for rusting. The first one is presence of oxygen and the second one is presence of water or water vapor. So the first one, presence of oxygen. If the both conditions are there, rusting will be happened. Or otherwise, either oxygen or either water is absent, so the rusting will not be occurred. So iron rust when placed in a damp air or water. So what I already said, iron gets rusted in the presence of damp air or we are kept in water. So the damp air contains water vapor. So damp air means I already said a water vapor will be present in damp air as well as oxygen also present in air. So this is a required condition for rusting of iron. As well as in normal water, we are keeping an iron nail in that water, it starts rusting. That is, in ordinary water also, there will be some dissolved oxygen in it. So, automatically the iron gets rusted. So, these two conditions should be there for rusting. Otherwise, the rusting will not occur. So, let us watch this video. This gives a different conditions of rusting. Gives an idea about different conditions that required for rusting.
Let us investigate the effect of external factors on rusting. We will need the following items for the experiment: nails containing iron, edible oil, anhydrous calcium chloride, and test tubes with stoppers, a beaker, a funnel, a pipette, a spatula spoon, and a glass rod. We place nails in 4 test tubes. We add a little distilled water to the first test tube. We pour the water with some table salt into the second test tube. We add freshly boiled distilled water. It contains less dissolved gases from the air, and a little edible oil to the third test tube. The layer of oil will prevent the air in the test tube from dissolving in the water. We add calcium chloride, which will absorb the water vapor present in the air, to the fourth test tube. We seal the test tubes with stoppers and put the rack aside for a few days. If we examine the contents of the test tubes afterwards, we'll see certain changes. In the first and second test tubes, the nails were in contact with air and water, so they become covered in rust. However, no rust formed in the third and fourth test tubes. In the third test tube, the nail was in contact with water, but there was no access for air. In the fourth test tube, there was no water. It appears that air and...
So see this in the video. There are 4 test tubes. In first one they kept water, normal water, and the second test tube they kept salty water, and in third one boiled water and edible oil. and the fourth one is dry air, that means empty test tube. So see, first and second test tubes get rusted. So the nails that present in first two test tubes get rusted because there is water as well as there is presence of air. So this is the two necessary condition for rusting. And see the third one, there is water but the rusting doesn't happen there. Why? Because that is already boiled water, so that there will be very less amount of oxygen molecules, as well as we are adding an edible oil, that is we are adding a layer above the water, so it stops the dissolve of oxygen molecules into that water. So the oxygen present in atmosphere cannot be dissolved in that water, but because the edible oil separates the atmosphere as well as water, so there is no oxygen, so the rusting doesn't happen there. So both the condition are necessary for rusting. And see the fourth one, dry air, that means normal air, we are adding calcium hydroxide there. That is, calcium hydroxide has a character to absorb water vapor in the atmosphere. It absorbs water vapor. So there is presence of oxygen but there is no water vapor, so in that case also no rusting. So that is, in that case also rusting doesn't happen. So you got an idea, that is a two condition is very important for a rusting process. The first one is presence of oxygen and presence of water vapor. So okay, rusting is a good thing? No. So we have to prevent rusting. Rusting will destroy the iron objects, so we cannot use it further. So we have to prevent rusting. So if air and water are preventing from coming in contact with iron objects, the rusting will not take place. So we have to stop the contact of iron object with air and water. So thus most of the methods of preventing rusting iron is, we have to keep it out from air and water. So we have to do something to avoid the contact of air and water with iron objects. So we can protect that iron objects by painting, oiling or greasing the surface of iron objects. So we have to avoid rusting, that is a very important one. So we have to coat the iron objects with painting, or we can coat the iron objects by oiling or greasing their surfaces. And also there is one more method, galvanization. Galvanization means you have to remember zinc metal. So in galvanization process, that iron object is being coated with thin layer of zinc metal. So we can see in this picture itself, a thin layer of zinc metal is added to the pipes, so that steel pipes, iron pipes. So we have to give a thin layer of zinc metal to avoid the rusting in iron objects. So that layer of zinc metal coating is called galvanization process. As well as in electroplating method also we can protect iron objects. In electroplating method, silver is used. So iron objects are coated with silver. And also we can paint, grease, oiling. So these are all normal process, but galvanization and electroplating is used for huge use of iron objects. Now think and answer, what would happen if there is no tree on the earth? So you have to give your answer. You discuss with your mind and give an answer about this. If there is no tree on earth, what would be happen? Thank you, students.